Good afternoon, and welcome to today's G3 Academy webcast titled G3 Academy Sustainable and Resilient Community Showcase, Infill Philadelphia, Soak It Up, Revitalizing Urban Neighborhoods Through Green Stormwater Infrastructure. This webcast is sponsored by the EPA Region 3's Water Protection Division and is a part of the G3 Academy series of trainings. I'm Dominique Lukenhoff, Associate Director, Water Protection Division, EPA Region 3, and I will be moderating the webcast. Thank you all for joining us today. Before we begin, we have a few tips to keep your webcast experience running smoothly. If you are hearing an echo, please close all browser windows except for the webcast presentation. You can also mute the presentation using the microphone icon in the lower left corner of your screen. If you are experiencing technical difficulties with the webcast, you can request assistance by entering your technical issue into the white box at the bottom of your screen just below the slide and clicking the Ask button. Your questions and the responses from our tech team will appear at the bottom of your screen below the white box where you entered your question. If you cannot see the Ask a Question box at the bottom of your screen, change your screen resolution by clicking on Tools in your web browser and selecting Zoom Out. If you would like to see closed captioning, please make sure that you have turned off your pop-up block and click on the closed captioning button on the top of your screen. During this webcast, we will poll participants to get a better sense of who you are and where you're from. To complete the poll questions in the evaluation form at the end of the webcast, select the radio button to the left of your choice and click Submit. Do not type your answer in the Ask box. Please note the tabs at the top of your webcast console on the Downloads tab. You can find some downloadable content, including speaker contact information and additional information on the content of today's presentations. You can also see the Certificate tab. Everyone who participates in 60 minutes of the webcast is eligible to download the PDF copy of today's certificate. Infill Philadelphia, Soak It Up is a partnership between the Community Design Collaborative, the Philadelphia Water Department, and the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency to explore how green stormwater infrastructure can revitalize urban neighborhoods. Philadelphia is a national leader in stormwater management, planning, and policy. The city's innovative 25-year stormwater management plan, Green City Clean Waters, aims to reduce combined sewer overflows and other pollutants in local waterways primarily through green stormwater infrastructure, a national first. This webcast will focus on a design competition to promote the innovative design and investment in green stormwater infrastructure in Philadelphia, with a special focus on retrofitting existing buildings and sites. Entering teams were asked to address the unique stormwater management challenges as well as opportunities at one of 3 sites. Each site represented a different urban context and land use, industrial, commercial, or neighborhood. 9 finalists out of a total of 28 teams consisting of 101 firms and 315 professionals from across the nation were selected to present their entries at the March 7, 2013 Design Awards event, where a jury comprised of leaders in green stormwater infrastructure chose one winner for each competition site. The 3 winning design teams will present their concepts under their design category. Winners included Leveraging Water plus Plants, Laura Hansplant, RLA, Director of Design, Roof Metal, and Musco Martin, RA Lead AP Principal and M2 Architecture. Stormwater Restore, Christopher Gubino, PE Vice President, Urban Engineers, Inc., and Johanna Phelps, Landscape Designer, Matthews Nielsen Landscape Architects. And Meeting Green, Richard Rourke, RLA Lead AP Partner, Olin, and Ari Miller, Landscape Designer, Olin. We also have two expert speakers who will introduce the Infill Philadelphia program. Tiffany Ledesma-Grawl, Outreach Engagement Specialist, representing Philadelphia Water Department, is a public outreach engagement specialist with Trans-Pacific Engineering Corporation, where she has spent 9 years as a contract employee with the Philadelphia Water Department, currently working for the Public Affairs Division and previously with the Office of Watersheds. Tiffany leads a team in public outreach, stewardship, and communications to support PWD initiatives such as Green City Clean Waters, Philadelphia's innovative and environmentally sustainable plan to transform the health of the city's waterways through a primarily land-based approach with green stormwater infrastructure. Heidi Siegel-Levy, Design Services Director, Community Design Collaborative, is a registered architect with 20 years of design and project management experience. Before joining the collaborative staff in 2001, Heidi was a senior project architect with Wallace, Roberts & Todd, LLC, Kling, and SOM. Currently, she is an active volunteer with the Julia R. Masterman School and Temple Beth Zion, Beth Israel. One final note before we get started with our first speaker. We will try to answer as many questions as possible through this webcast. However, due to the high number of participants, not all questions will be answered. However, we have posted the speaker's contact information in case you'd like to contact them after the webcast. You can find the speaker's contact information as well as a comprehensive resource list on the Downloads tab of your console. You will need Adobe Acrobat Reader to view the resource list document. I will now turn it over to Tiffany, who will begin today's webcast.
Thank you, Dominique. As Dominique mentioned, my name is Tiffany Ledesma-Grawl. I work with the Philadelphia Water Department on the Green City Clean Waters Public Outreach and Engagement team. And I'm going to provide a very brief overview on Green City Clean Waters and some background information on Infill Soak It Up. Green City Clean Waters details how the City of Philadelphia will invest about $2 billion over the next 25 years to transform the health of the city's creeks and rivers, primarily through a land-based approach. And when we're referring to land-based approaches, we're talking about greening practices that manage stormwater runoff in an environmentally friendly way. So we're referencing rain gardens and tree trenches and forest pavement, those sort of designs that can really manage the stormwater runoff problem in a way that is good for the environment and healthy for the city. What makes Philadelphia's plan to transform the health of the waterways unique is that it is very much an environmental, social, and economically beneficial plan for the city. By taking a green approach, we're talking about making improvements on a social scale where we can see benefits coming from the enjoyment of a creek where the water is clean, there's more habitat. I also find people may picnic more often along creeks that smell good and look good. People will want to actually use their local parks if they're desirable and they're green. We might see benefits that impact the economy, where there are trees on a residential street. There's a potential for an increase in property values. When there's trees in a community, there's a better air quality. So for these social, economic, and environmental reasons, the Water Department felt that this was certainly an important way for us to go. It was also the more affordable way for us to go in addressing our water quality problems in the creeks and the rivers. And I think the big question of how we plan to transform Philadelphia into a green city, clean waters is one that we're dealing with every day. And what we're doing to really make this transition is we're developing new regulatory tools and changing policies, making funding commitments and creating incentives, and really focusing on developing partnerships, new partnerships, and strengthening existing partnerships, but also working with citizens throughout Philadelphia to really connect with these green investments that are very much local investments, and they're developed over time, little by little, on a block scale. So it's really important that the citizens of Philadelphia understand what the Water Department and its partners are doing with them in their communities. This slide covers some of the tools in our toolbox, some of the sample stormwater management practices that we currently use. There are others, but these are generally the ones that are most popular. And we feel that there's probably a lot of other tools out there that we'd like to explore, and we also feel that there may be better ways of designing the tools that we currently have, which really brings us to this Infill Soak It Up competition and our partnership with the EPA. And I just wanted to mention that back almost a year ago, the EPA and the City of Philadelphia signed an agreement that really focuses on the formalization of the EPA and the City of Philadelphia coming together to help advance green stormwater infrastructure practices in the Philadelphia region. And as a result of that agreement and that partnership, which is extremely exciting for the City of Philadelphia, we decided to create working groups. And one of the working groups that came out of this agreement and this partnership is a public outreach and stewardship working group. And the EPA had expressed to the Water Department their thoughts on pushing more creative and innovative and cost-effective ideas to help us better manage stormwater runoff, like Houston did with their low-impact development conference a few years back. So the Water Department responded to that request by putting out a request for proposals, and as a result, the Community Design Collaborative responded to the request for proposals was to put on a competition, a green stormwater infrastructure design competition. And the Community Design Collaborative really responded with a whole package of ideas, a series of design events that culminated into the big design competition 18 months later. And I will let Heidi actually go into the details of the competition. But the Water Department was incredibly pleased with the Community Design Collaborative's response and the full implementation of the plan. And we're just thrilled that we're at this point now that we've been able to award the 3 winning teams with the prize money, and now actually setting up the next step, which will be trying to figure out the best way to implement some of these great ideas that have come out of this process, so we could really truly use them as templates for implementing green infrastructure throughout the city.
Thanks, Tiffany, for that excellent information. We're going to have some questions for Tiffany from the audience, but before we do that, there are some quick poll questions for you to answer.
Sure.
Once everyone answers these poll questions, you'll be able to review the results immediately, and they will refresh with the most updated results as more people answer them. So let's get started. Look in the box, I work for ? Please click on the radio button that best describes who you work for. And we've also included, along with local government, state government, federal government, a nonprofit, academia, Also, if you are in any aspect of the green infrastructure industry, we'd like to know that, along with other. And while we're waiting, we now have answers to the poll question that you're working with. So the answers should be coming up. We're seeing 13% local government, 31% federal government. Great, the feds are showing up. Nonprofit, 22%. Academia, 3%. Green infrastructure industry, 13%. And other, 19%. And now for the next poll question. How many people are participating in the webcast today at your location? Please click on the radio button that best describes how many people are watching the webcast from your location. You should see just me, 2 to 5, 6 to 10, 10 to 20, more than 20. And don't forget our next webcast on Thursday, April 18th, 2013. This webcast will be the second in a series of highlighting successful G3 projects. Now, please go to the Downloads tab to get a copy of the slides with the registration URL so that you can copy it. This is for the April 18th webcast. You can also ask for the link on your console through the Ask button, and we will send it to you. And now we're looking at the answers to the second poll for the Just Me, 91%. I think we should just say it's all about me, not just me. And it looks like it's mostly individuals, 2 to 5 or 9%. And it looks like we don't have larger groups than that enjoying the webcast today. So now we can take some questions for Tiffany. And let's see if we have which questions we have coming up. Tiffany, one question in terms of the amount of responses and that were actually received from throughout the country. Can you give us a little more information in terms of that level of interest? What did you see in terms of the types of teams in different parts of the country in this particular topic?
I believe Heidi will go into this in more detail, but we did get responses primarily from the region, New York, New Jersey. I believe there were a few in California and a few out west, but for the most part, they primarily came in from this region, although we did do outreach nationwide.
Okay, and I think Heidi's probably going to get into more details in terms of the selection process and the next steps in terms of awards and those kinds of things, right?
Right.
Okay, let's see. I think we're going to go ahead and move on, and with that, advance to Heidi's presentation. So Heidi Siegel-Levy of Community Design Collaborative, take it away, Heidi.
Thank you, Dominique. So I'm just going to give a little background on the Community Design Collaborative itself, on our Infill Philadelphia initiative, and then give some more information about the competition and the competition process. So the collaborative, the Community Design Collaborative is a community design center based in Philadelphia. Our mission is actually threefold. It's to provide pro bono preliminary design services to nonprofit organizations, to offer unique volunteer opportunities for design professionals, and to raise awareness about the importance of design in community revitalization. Infill Philadelphia is a multi-phase initiative of the collaborative, which explores design strategies for infill development in older urban neighborhoods. Each phase features a theme, an intermediary partner, 3 relevant design projects, and public events. Infill Philadelphia Soak It Up is the fourth phase of Infill Philadelphia and is focused on accelerating the adoption, adaptation, and implementation of green stormwater management in the Philadelphia region. In addition to the design competition, which is the main focus of this phase of the initiative, the collaborative also developed a series of other design-centered programs, including exhibitions, charrettes, lectures, and a publication. Infill Philadelphia Soak It Up began with the Water Department's charge to the collaborative to create a national design competition which would inspire and promote innovative green stormwater infrastructure for Philadelphia. The competition's three main goals were to generate innovative, cost-effective designs, help public, private, and nonprofit property owners see return on capital investments, and serve as prototypes for green stormwater infrastructure. The competition was to be modeled after Houston's low-impact development design competition of 2009, which was extremely successful. In following that model, we formed a steering committee comprised of representatives from the collaborative staff, as well as a few of the collaborative's design professional volunteers with stormwater technical expertise, and staff from the Water Department and staff from EPA. The first task that this group had was to identify and select 3 real-life sites to be used for the competition. It was important that these 3 sites had the potential for implementation as well as be representative of other sites in Philadelphia. A key goal of the competition was to develop solutions that could not only be implemented on the specific site selected, but also be replicated on other sites throughout the city. It was determined that each site would represent a different urban context and land use, each of which frequently posed challenges to the Water Department in terms of managing stormwater. The first site was an industrial site. This was a site which was located in a high-vacancy residential industrial district and included 2 properties. One property was that of a warehouse structure that covered 100% of its site. The second property was a city-owned vacant lot located across the street from the warehouse property. This site offered the opportunity to explore the feasibility of managing stormwater entirely on the warehouse property, as well as the potential to incorporate the surrounding streets, sidewalks, and/or city-owned vacant land. The second site was a commercial one. This was the site of a typical urban retail strip center located at the industrial edge of a residential neighborhood just adjacent to the Schuylkill River. The center, although originally designed as a vehicular-oriented site, is just a 5-minute walk for thousands of customers. This site offered the opportunity to explore how stormwater management could help the site play a more central role in the surrounding neighborhood through improved walkability, a pop-up community space, and access to river recreation. The third site was a neighborhood site. This was the largest site, incorporating an approximately 6-square block area within one of Philadelphia's oldest residential neighborhoods dating from the 1700s. The dense fabric of row houses, corner stores, alleyways, and small streets represents a huge area of impervious surface. This site offered the opportunity to explore how to connect the neighborhood's network of rooftops, rear yards, alleys, streets, and sidewalks into a comprehensive green rainwater collection system. Once the 3 sites were confirmed, the intense work of developing the content and guidelines for the competition began. This work culminated in the creation of the design competition packet, which included everything the design teams needed to know. It included background, objectives, design goals, evaluation criteria, site information, submission requirements, and resource information. Collaborative staff worked very closely with our design professional technical advisors as well as staff from the Water Department to develop this information. In addition, in order to develop the program for each site, we created a community task force for each of the 3 sites, which included the property owners as well as community, nonprofit, and agency stakeholders. With their input, we developed the site information given to each of the design teams, which included site conditions and context, site challenges and opportunities, site-specific goals, and site-specific parameters. A package of supporting documents and resources was compiled for each site and given to each team to be used as the basis for their design work. This package included aerial photos, site plans, environmental studies, virtual tours, and neighborhood studies. Also included were cost calculation sheets developed for each site, which enabled the teams to calculate costs related to their design solutions. Competition registration was launched with an event held in early October that showcased a precedent exhibition intended to build excitement and momentum for the competition. A call for entries had been released to architecture, landscape architecture, planning, and engineering firms for an exhibit of best practices in site design featuring green stormwater infrastructure. The exhibit included over 40 projects from across the country. The exhibit and competition launch was a sold-out event. The competition registration was then closed on November 30th with 36 teams registering, which was beyond our expectations. Submissions were then due on January 22nd. We ultimately received 28 submissions, which represented 101 firms and 315 professionals from the Philadelphia region and other cities, including New York City, St. Louis, Chicago, Oakland, and Portland. In the competition, there were 2 stages of judging. The first jury met on February 6th. They were tasked with selecting 3 finalists for each category based on a score sheet which was developed using the evaluation criteria. The criteria was broken into categories which included stormwater management, design and programming, cost effectiveness, implementation strategy, and presentation. The jurors were sent all 28 electronic submissions. Each was a PDF file of up to 30 pages. The jurors were asked to review them, score them, and come to the February 6th meeting with their top 3 choices in each category. Through 6 hours of discussion and debate, the 8 jurors selected the 3 finalists for each category. All 28 submissions were really phenomenal, so the jury had a very difficult time narrowing it down. Although the top 3 in each category were selected for comprehensively meeting all of the design criteria, the jury acknowledged that there were many innovative aspects within the other submissions. So in addition to recognizing the 9 finalists, the jurors also acknowledged specific aspects of several of the other submissions with what we called jury shout-outs. The next step was for the 9 finalists to create a pecha kucha, or rapid-style presentation, to be presented at the Design Awards event, which was held on March 7th. Each finalist team was to present their design using 20 slides, each shown for just 20 seconds, for a total of 6 minutes and 40 seconds. The awards event was attended by over 300 people and included a reception with an exhibit of the design boards from all 28 submissions, followed by the 9 presentations. A second jury was assembled for the second stage of judging, which took place at the awards event and would count for 20% of the team's overall scores. The second jury was asked to rank each of the 3 presentations within each category. There was then a brief intermission during which the rankings were plugged into a score sheet which calculated the findings of the first jury as 80% and those of the second jury as 20%, resulting in 1 winner in each category. Each winning team received a $10,000 award, and you will be seeing those winning presentations here in just a few minutes. In addition, we will be documenting the competition, the finalists, as well as highlights from some of the other submissions in a Grid magazine publication, which will be issued in the summer. We also plan to arrange opportunities to exhibit all 28 boards again in the coming months, as well as during USGBC's National Green Bill Conference, which will be held in Philadelphia in the fall. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Heidi. Are there any questions for Heidi? If you have questions, you should send them in. Heidi, I believe that you indicated that the process utilized for the Philadelphia competition is going to be made available. You mentioned Grid magazine, but similar to that of the Houston LID competition, I know it was great for us to be able to see how Houston went about that competition, and I think it's very interesting to see some of the unique approaches that Philadelphia has taken. Will that process be made available?
Yes, it will. We'll be putting together kind of a summary, almost what Houston did was they put together a white paper describing the process, and that was something that was very useful for us, as well as we did hear a presentation directly from those who put that together. But that is something that we will be putting together and will make available for others who would like to use it as a model.
Okay. I think folks are still absorbing quite a bit of information that you shared. The questions aren't streaming in, but if we're going to move on to our next speaker. However, if you do have questions, one has come in for Tiffany. I'll come back to that. I think what we're going to do, though, is get to the really, really exciting part of this, which is the winning submittals. So it is now my pleasure to turn the webcast over to our first winning design team. This is the team composed of Laura Hansplant and Musco Martin, and their project is leveraging water plus plants.
Thank you very much, Dominique.
Thank you. This is Laura Hansplant.
And this is
Go ahead, Musco.
This is Musco Martin from M Squared Architecture. So our site, as Heidi mentioned, is the industrial site. It's located in North Philadelphia, and as Heidi mentioned, in a generally industrial area. Now, this area has not yet seen much redevelopment or gentrification. However, nearby areas are definitely starting to see that kind of activity. Temple University in Philadelphia is in the general area there, and they've begun to look at this area significantly. But at present, it's still relatively untouched. The structure on the site is a brick building, mostly one story. The owner of the building runs a business fabricating metal mesh. They have some tenants as well, but they still have quite a lot of unused space in the building. So that's a little bit of background, and now we're going to start our presentation, the kind of the formal part of it, if you will. And as Heidi mentioned, this was originally done in a timed sequence of 20 seconds per slide, so we'll probably be going along more or less at that rate. This industrial block needs help, not just help with runoff, but help expanding businesses, help adapting buildings to new uses, help improving the neighborhood. Good news, though, help is here. This afternoon, we bring you 5 integrated strategies to transform water, place, and community. The building on the site, like many others in these industrial zones, it fills most of its block, leaving little land for rainwater management. It's too big for its current tenant, but the large floor plan does not lend itself to other uses. As you see in the slide, the roof is chopped up and irregular with multiple downspouts and drains as the roof has evolved and been added to over time.
This site has challenges often found at old industrial properties. No privately owned open space, likely soil contamination, old pavements, rubble fills. But the good news, a diverse neighborhood with emerging revitalization and business investment. This property can be part of that trend. The design we're about to show you is the outcome of great collaboration by our team members, my colleagues at Roof Meadow, M Squared Architecture, the talented engineers at Meliora Design, environmental artist Stacy Levy, SED Design, who kept us appraised of costs and yet reminded us to keep dreaming, and in Posse. So here we go, our top 5 strategies for transforming industrial properties in Philadelphia.
So counting down from strategy number 5, this building wears its rain on its skin. Our blue-green skin is made from off-the-shelf plastic pipes secured in a metal mesh support made by Darby & Son, the building owner. Roof runoff flows into these cisterns for temporary detention, seeps into the planter bed at the base, and then overflows to tree trenches. We divided the large roof into separate drainage areas. Rain that falls on the perimeter zones, which you see here in a blue-green, flows into the cisterns of our blue-green skin. Rain that falls on the interior zones of the large roof, shown in lighter green, is handled by a later strategy that we'll describe in a second. So these modular cistern units, which we imagine could be mass-produced and used in other buildings around the city and perhaps around the country, these units are spread around all 4 sides of the building. We've grouped them in 2s and 3s to minimize piping, but also to accommodate windows and doors. We think the groupings also add a rhythm and scale to these long blank facades that would actually help improve the general walkability in the neighborhood. And again, the metal mesh that we're using as part of the construction made by the building owners, Darby and Sons, this can become an armature to support vines, artwork, and signage, in this case, the name of the building owner.
Strategy 4 combines thin green roofs with shallow ponded blue roofs that, together, detain significant amounts of runoff while keeping weights and costs manageable. We've applied this strategy to the flat areas of the warehouse roof. 1/3 is green, 2/3 is blue. Any remaining runoff from the roofs flows either to the blue-green walls or to the proposed courtyards, a strategy that's coming up. Here you see the planted and ponded bands on the roof. At less than half the cost of a conventional green roof, this approach is competitive with other stormwater management practices. And at half the weight of a regular green roof, older industrial buildings can support it without structural reinforcement. Rainfall is held back by shallow check dams and soaks through seepage socks at the joints. Strips of green roof act as natural filters for the upslope ponding. The planted roof soaks up water for evapotranspiration, where plants release water back up into the air.
In strategy number 3, we've taken away a little to gain a lot. In this case, we're carving out rainwater courtyards out of the larger floor plan. These courtyards can provide space for additional runoff management, but just as importantly, they can allow natural light and visibility deeper into the structure to attract new uses and new tenants. The courtyards can become outdoor spaces accessible from either the sidewalk or the building. Maybe a cafe or a hipster pop-up, or just a private outdoor space for tenants. The courtyards also allow opportunities for a more playful design of cisterns and downspouts, as you see here inside the courtyard in this rendering. We think this is a possibility to be more playful and reveal the movement and the magic of rainwater. In this cross-section at one of our rainwater courtyards, you can see additional cisterns and small infiltration beds that can accommodate additional rainfall. Remember, this building is so large that without carving these courtyards into it, there's no land available for infiltration. Now, some of the rainwater can also be used inside the building for toilet flushing and similar uses, and we've included here a separate cistern for that, along with filtration and disinfection, as you see shown in the drawing. We've also imagined these courtyards would be constructed at a later phase as the neighborhood and the real estate market evolve and as funding becomes available.
In strategy 2, a tree trench mimics a natural spring. On the right, water washes off the street through a wire mesh screen produced in the warehouse and then fills the trench. Water fills the trench and wells up at a spring point on the left next to the sidewalk. It overflows through a trench drain below the sidewalk. The streetscape springs handle runoff from the road and the sidewalk. A series of tree trenches, shown here in the darkest blue, become a system that connects rainwater to other greening strategies. Rainfall from the public streetscapes can also be managed in the courtyards, which have excess capacity. Here, private property has the opportunity to provide a public service. In this last strategy, rain gardens are the heart of a park that serves two needs, rainwater and community. The central rain gardens showcase a healthy urban ecology. Curving bridges featuring Darby's wire mesh link the activity spaces on each side. The rain gardens are designed as a horizontal groundwater system of limited depth. The pervious activity areas let rainfall seep gradually sideways into the central rain gardens, which are both sponges and filters. Infiltration is an enhancement, but not a requirement on these uncertain soils. Here you can see the sequence of rain gardens, which are fed by water from the park and adjacent streets. Note that the park's rain gardens are serving the public space. Contrary to expectations, the warehouse is managing its own stormwater. However, Rainworks Park has the capacity to handle overflow from adjacent development sites if wanted. Flexible open spaces on either side belong to the community, and the community defines their uses. Activities are paired in a way that enhances both. Perhaps community garden spaces and a kids' play area, a basketball half-court and shaded seating, or a dog park and picnic area. The diverse park reflects a diverse neighborhood.
Our 5 strategies, working together as an integrated system, manage close to 3 inches of roof rainfall within the Water Department's desired cost range. Perhaps more importantly, though, these strategies also enhance the character of the street, support higher quality tenant spaces, and help regenerate local businesses and the community. Stormwater is a problem. Rainwater is an opportunity. Stormwater is seen as waste to be sent away to the sewer. Rainwater can be a resource that can be used and enjoyed. On this 19th century site, a 21st century approach to rain can help renew not only the urban hydrology, but the urban fabric itself. Thank you.
Thank you to our first team, Laura and Musco. That was an excellent overview of a super winning design. And we're now going to open up for some questions from the audience for the design team. So think of your questions and get them in. I'll start with one question. Perhaps can you talk to the design and how you approached maintenance?
We had a multidisciplinary team, so and many of the members have direct experience working with the City of Philadelphia and various property owners in the city with green infrastructure. So we talked with the people on our team about their direct experience and regarding maintenance for the different kinds of ideas we have here, specifically the tree trenches, the streetscape springs along the street, and the blue-green roof. We have direct information on that.
And did you discuss in terms of the overflow and the additional capacity to handle the runoff, the opportunities for creating credits?
Currently, the City of Philadelphia charges a fee for runoff, for stormwater runoff. So this design would provide, or any combination of the strategies here would provide credit to the property owner for reducing runoff. They get a break on their fees. We did talk about, in a general sense, being able to open up the possibility of getting additional credit for managing stormwater beyond stormwater that's generated on the property itself. So, for example, we talked about the courtyards and the ability potentially to bring runoff from the public streetscape onto the property and manage it there where the capacity exists. And the incentive for that would be a credit. But specifically what that is a discussion we still need to have.
Sure, and I realize this wasn't a specific component of the criteria, but clearly your design allows for some additional opportunities there. I think this was super, and I want to encourage folks to certainly follow up. And again, we're going to move on, but if you are thinking of any questions that you might have for Laura and Musco, just go ahead and write them down. We'll circle back. Thank you very
Dominique,
Yes.
This is Musco. If I could just jump in real quickly, I'm not quite answering your question on credits, but I think one of the things that we, working as a team, I think really all these three winning schemes have is that integrated approach, looking at a variety of strategies. But one of the things that we really focused on was the fact that you couldn't manage all the rainwater using any one of these 5 strategies. None of them by themselves would be sufficient. But when you add them all together, you actually start to have the possibility of doing something pretty significant. And it was a little bit of a surprise, I think, to all of us when we sort of worked our way through it, that a little bit here and a little bit there, and pretty soon it adds up to a fairly significant amount of water that can be handled. So I think that was something that the competition sort of had everybody discover, was that it doesn't have to be one big idea. Actually, a number of smaller ideas can each kind of handle a small amount, and when you add them all together, you actually get something fairly significant.
That which actually speaks to the very innovative design that you captured. And you guys have also precipitated, to use rainwater speak, some questions. So I'm going to take a couple moments. Here's one. Are the vertical cisterns already commercially produced? The viewer thought this was a very interesting idea.
They're not commercially produced in the shape that you see there. There are slimline cisterns and narrow sort of cylindrical cisterns, but the more extreme version we have here is not. We actually, in our team, talked through 2 or 3 different ways, possibilities for how to build them, and in the end came up with the vertical cylinders as something we could build from readily available components that were already in the marketplace.
And another question, was there flow monitoring of the facility? If so, how was it done?
We didn't use sort of dynamic modeling software. We looked at the ability for the different storage possibilities, the vertical cisterns, the tree trenches, to hold water and to capture water. Actually, their capacity is higher if you start to model the rate that they're able to release water relative to the intensity of the rainfall, and then the actual infiltration rate adds to their capacity.
Okay, here's a final question. Can you elaborate on cost per green acre and the number of green acres produced?
Yes, the benchmark that all our teams were given was, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's $250,000 per green acre was the number that they wanted us to stay below. And so these strategies range from $160,000 a green acre to $245, just under the limit anyway, $1,000 a green acre. So they vary a little bit. We greened, I'm trying to remember because I don't have the chart in front of me, we greened I think around 7 acres here.
Okay. Super. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, that was an excellent presentation. So I'm now going to turn it over to our second design team, composed of Christopher Gubineau and Johanna Phelps. Their project is called Stormwater Restore. Take it away.
Thank you, Dominique. Chris Gubineau with Urban Engineers.
And Johanna Phelps with Matthews Nielsen.
Just to give you a little bit of background, like Musco did for his project, our project is a retail commercial site with an anchor grocery store in a urbanized area of the city of Philadelphia, in the Grays Ferry section of the city of Philadelphia. Like many urban shopping centers, it is saddled with large parking areas that are requirements of old zoning codes, and large buildings that kind of work at either at the very back of the property or along the edges, and really are very car-centric and not very pedestrian or people-friendly. Along with this, our property abuts the Schuylkill River in the far back corner, and in the planning for the Schuylkill River, there's for a Schuylkill River trail that will run along the southern and eastern edge of the river. Part of it is already constructed, and as the funding becomes available, more and more of that becomes able to be designed and built. So with that in mind, I'm going to get started. Urban engineers, Matthews Nielsen Landscape Architects, and Spiesel Architectural Group all work to define cost-effective community amenities that improve the stormwater discharge for the Grays Ferry Avenue Shopping Center. We focused on creating an adaptable design that could be used on similar types of shopping centers with excessive parking. The shopping center has large impervious areas, including parking lot pavements, driveways, and over 81,000 square feet of roof. Large parking lot and setback building promotes the use of cars and does not invite pedestrians or the community to come in and spend time. Additionally, there are minimal sustainable elements on the site. The property is over 10 acres in size, and over 80% of the property consists of directly connected impervious surfaces, draining to combined sewers in Grays Ferry Avenue. The large expanses of pavement and buildings create a barrier for access by pedestrians in the community. And for all this, the owners get to pay a $3,400 a month stormwater bill. We looked at many ways to improve the shopping center through on-site versus off-site improvements, at-grade or underground stormwater features, blue or green roofs, and everything in between. And we always came back to focusing on the creation of community amenities and public spaces that functioned as stormwater improvements. Our three design goals were create cost-effective stormwater management opportunities, create a more pedestrian-friendly and community-oriented design, and identify energy-reducing and sustainable building initiatives. In our design process, we began to focus on identifying many small, incremental improvements that added up to a much larger overall impact. Our many small improvements are reflected in the design of the Grays Ferry Greenway and Capture Islands, which focused on rain gardens and linear stormwater improvements within the parking lot. The roof drain garden and Hidden River Plaza took underused or found spaces in the site to provide significant and sizable community gathering spaces that also handle stormwater. By reconfiguring the southern edge of the parking lot, we were able to create a greenway along Grays Ferry Avenue that provides opportunities to incorporate sustainable green stormwater infrastructure into the streetscape. This design added 34 trees, provided 950 linear feet of streetscape, and included 12,000 square feet of plantings and pervious surfaces. The existing sidewalk feels like an island between the roadway and the parking lot. By taking the last few spaces of parking in each row, we were able to create a 22-foot wide greenway with a rain garden and planting buffer on either side of a pedestrian path. By improving the pedestrian feel of the property, we can provide stormwater infiltration or storage and timed release. The Capture Islands utilize space within the parking lot by reducing the existing 28-foot wide drive aisles to 24 feet. The Capture Islands are rain gardens that include trees and do not require regrading or repaving of the parking lot. Runoff is intercepted as it flows and can either be infiltrated or stored and released. The large expanses of the existing parking lot paving will be broken up by the rain gardens, reducing the heat island effect and giving the parking lot a more pedestrian scale and a friendlier feel. By implementing the rain gardens in the parking lot, we're able to disconnect the impervious areas and again provide opportunities for infiltration or storage.
From the beginning, we saw the 2-acre rooftop and the adjacent unleased 8,000 square foot lot as two major site opportunities. So we took the underutilized vacant lot and repurposed it as the roof drain garden, a public plaza and rain garden to handle runoff from the rooftop. The roof drain garden is outfitted with permeable pavement, a green wall, benches, and bike racks. It operates as an educational stop on the Schuylkill River Trail with signage demonstrating the function of the stormwater system and creates a connection between the site, the river, and the watershed. If the site is needed for a tenant in the future, the runoff can also be collected in underground storage beneath the building and the site can be leased. We saw another opportunity in the northern portion of the parking lot's main entry drive. Early on, we realized that the parking lot circulation can function without this drive aisle. So we took back the square footage and transformed the space into the Hidden River Plaza. One of the translations of Schuylkill is Hidden River, a reference to the invisibility of the river due to vegetation overgrowth. Over the years, industry became another barrier that literally hid the river. To celebrate and highlight the proximity of the river, the plaza features a dry riverbed, and on rainy days, water collects to reveal a river. The plaza also features a leasable net zero cafe that uses solar energy and other sustainable initiatives. To make a physical connection to the Schuylkill, we continued the rhythm of the Grays Ferry Greenway and brought it up Stanley Street to a pathway. From the pathway, a bridge takes bikers and walkers over the train tracks to connect to the Schuylkill River Trail. Signage along Grays Ferry and on Stanley Street will help direct pedestrians to the bridge.
Lighting of the trail connection and the parking lot is just one of the sustainable measures we looked at, utilizing energy-efficient, solar-powered LED lights and fixtures. By adding plantings and trees in the parking lot, green walls along the building, and the use of low-flow plumbing fixtures within the facility, there is an opportunity to reduce long-term maintenance costs for the facility. By approaching the project with small incremental changes, the stormwater restore improvements are able to reduce the directly connected impervious areas by 84%, using rain gardens, infiltration, storage, and landscaping. Our incremental changes are conservative in their application. We looked at phased approach to minimize impacts to the shopping center operations. Our design is also based on storage and release of stormwater. While we want to infiltrate, the potential for contaminated soils may require further testing to utilize infiltration. The stormwater restore initiatives will plant 92 trees, add 1,300 linear feet of greenway and streetscape, and provide for almost 22,000 cubic feet of stormwater storage or infiltration. But the biggest number is the 10,600 square feet of community space that is created from the unused vacant pad site and the found space in the parking lot. By implementing the stormwater restore initiatives, we can reduce the owner's stormwater monthly bill from just over $3,400 to just over $550 per month. We improve the pedestrian access, provide open space and community amenities, and draw more people to the site who will stay longer, spend more money, and come back again and again. Thank you.
That was excellent. Thank you, Christopher and Johanna. We're now going to open it up for questions. And I'll start with this one. In fact, with a little bit of a backdrop, this is a repeat from the question for the previous presenters. The question is, what is the most expensive BMP for a green acre? And could you talk to some of the costs per green acre relative to the design and technologies you're using?
I think, well, I mean, from the technical side, the cost per green acre, the most costly was actually the streetscape and incorporating the green initiatives into the roadway and get the parking lot to accommodate the stormwater runoff and improve that capture. Overall, we end up around $100,000 per greened acre. So it's pretty economical. I think, and it goes in line with the numbers that we're reducing the owner's monthly bill from by almost $3,000 that he's paying in combined sewer outfall bills. So
that's good. Who is responsible for the maintenance of the new green infrastructure?
Well, within the site, it would be the property owner, and I think we looked at ideas to make sure that we were not going overboard on the types of materials, plantings, that they were appropriate for the amount of maintenance that they were probably going to receive. Along the street, it would be a combination of the city and the property owner.
And in terms of, it was very interesting to see that you really focused on multi-beneficial and also went beyond the address of stormwater by focusing on energy efficiency as well as low-flow fixtures. Can you talk a little bit? I was curious, you know, there's always, when you realize you get these interdisciplinary teams together, what was interesting perhaps about your creative process in this approach to come up with such a holistic and a variety of approaches, in fact, going beyond that of the address of stormwater?
Johanna, you want to?
Well, we worked.
There's a movie coming out, I'm sure, behind the scenes.
We worked together. Chris and I have actually worked together on other projects, so we were sort of familiar with each other. And our other teammates, Beatsville Architecture from Trenton, New Jersey, and we worked together. And you know, the main thing that we started looking at was just how to deal with the parking lot, because that was sort of the largest surface area, and that was our first kind of figuring out how we could rearrange the parking lot at a minimal cost to you know, to accommodate fewer cars, but also to add in this green infrastructure. And then from there, you know, we sort of split off into our sort of disciplines. So, you know, because we're landscape architects, we focused a lot on the public space and creating, you know, pedestrian access to the space and beyond. And the architects really, who unfortunately aren't here right now, they really focused on the building and the net zero cafe and those sort of the solar canopies that provide the entry into the site and those elements.
Great. Well, clearly it was a winning approach. And again, I'll remind everyone that if you're interested in more information, this is going to be posted. And then, of course, there's the upcoming magazine article. So with that, I want to thank our second team, Christopher and Johanna, for an excellent presentation. And with that, we're going to move on to the third design team, composed of Richard Rourke and Ari Miller from Olin. And their project is called Meeting Green. I'll turn it over now.
Okay, thank you, Dominique. So just as an opener, Queen Village is a historic neighborhood within Philadelphia's combined sewer area. It's mixed use, like much of Philadelphia's neighborhood fabric. Unlike the commercial and industrial sites, the challenge was really to address a whole collection of sites and to come up with an integrated strategy that would work to build the quality of the neighborhood and manage stormwater with a green infrastructure strategy that would be holistic. The green infrastructure for Philadelphia's neighborhoods is, we think, the best opportunity for achieving the triple bottom line. And through the incorporation of our Meeting Green proposal, we believe it's an example of how city planning can both be achieve these top-level aims of managing stormwater and keeping our waterways clean, and at the same time creating a community participation model that invests communities in returning ecosystem services back to the city. So with that, we'll get started.
So this is Ari speaking. As Richard alluded to, the core of our project is really the idea that green infrastructure can be used to strengthen communities. The city's goal of implementing 9,500 greened acres within the combined sewer shed should respond to the social fabric of the city. the places where we live, the places where we meet each other, to create a triple bottom line benefit, environmental, social, and economic. So there's currently policy in place that provides incentives for large landholders to implement green infrastructure. But as you can see, these really aren't where people live, and that's not where the people are. And while it's important to address the large parcels or the low-hanging fruit, we must be aware that doing so only has minimal triple bottom line benefit. So it's easy to see why current policy favors the large land parcels. There's less complications, there are fewer landowners to deal with, and there's a high potential for a good return on investment. If you contrast that with working in a neighborhood context, there are space constraints, utility complications, and the complex fabric of small homes and businesses present significant challenges. We know that the challenge is great, but we believe that the reward is greater for working in these areas. With the triple bottom line benefit aside, the city's goals simply cannot be reached without the neighborhoods. The row homes, corner stores, restaurants, and shops that define Philadelphia's neighborhoods actually make up half of the land area in the combined sewer shed. Therefore, it's imperative to seek innovative solutions for neighborhoods like Queen Village. And I'll pass it over to Richard.
So to develop a strategy that looked at taking green infrastructure into the neighborhoods, that we had to develop a way that would look at the 9,500 green acre goal and see what portion should go to the neighborhoods to develop a cost model that works holistically for PWD, but also does provide that opportunity for achieving a true triple bottom line benefit. And the strategic sites that we thought green infrastructure would have the most meaningful impact within the neighborhoods was places where we meet each other, places of walkable streets, places of commercial activity, public space. And if you add green infrastructure onto that, then you're creating what we call meeting greens. These meeting greens become even more meaningful to the urban life of the city when we can link them together. And so attached to that is this idea of connectivity. So we connected these connective ways for pedestrians and cyclists through the city with green infrastructure, and these are called our linking greens and our branching greens. A linking green is simply a cross-city connection between these neighborhood meeting points, and the branching green is the finer pedestrian network that connects a given neighborhood. Queen Village is near the Delaware side of our waterfront. It is a very tight-knit mixed-use community. There's no parcel greater than 15,000 square feet. It's really a neighborhood of small businesses and residential masonry row homes, and the neighborhood network itself really called for a solution that would span these many different parcels, and it's quite impervious to boot. As we walked through the neighborhood and we looked at opportunities, we saw that there's some key intersections within Queen Village that were quite interesting to us. A place we called Center Green is the intersection of Christian Street, 2nd Street, and Moya Mincing. We noticed was the key commercial meeting point for the community. At the Shot Tower Recreation Center, it's a historic building with an athletic field attached to it. We saw that as another crucial meeting place within the community. And then we also recognized some divides that existed created by our interstate, I-95, that cuts off Queen Village from the waterfront. When you look at the places where people meet and where there's opportunities to build connectivity within the neighborhood, and you overlay that with the stormwater catchment, that became our template for building a plan for Queen Village that would holistically incorporate green infrastructure goals. Looking in detail at this plan, we were able to identify a catchment of approximately 42% of the neighborhood. And we developed a couple of strategies from infiltration planters to permeable pavement systems where we could collectively manage between 1 and 3 inches of the stormwater event through a hybrid strategy of both public and private catchments of stormwater. So when you look here at the center green, this is green infrastructure taken on a role beyond simply managing water. It's part of the placemaking experience. And here we see a permeable paved plaza with a center stage that has a celebration green to it. Looking in detail at that place of gathering is called the rain stage, and the rain stage sits above a stormwater wetland that collects stormwater and manages it from this new piazza that we've created within Queen Village. At the shot tower green, the historic shot tower is complemented by a historic natural feature, which is the stormwater management wetland we've put here. Historically, this area had marshlands to it, and so we're really returning some of the local ecosystem to the environment through this stormwater wetland and adding an additional layer of community amenity with this feature wrapping the existing park. At Christian Street, the proposal is to create a green street that is more habitable to the pedestrian and to the cyclist, while capturing stormwater along the linear path, which goes east to west between the waterfront and the neighborhoods of South Philadelphia. And at Beck Street, we have a branching green, which creates a community alley network where pedestrians come from their homes and have a safe pedestrian route to the meeting greens of the neighborhood. And a stone bed collects stormwater from the adjacent housing within the neighborhood. This opportunity to transform a third of the combined sewer area into a managed green infrastructure system is also an opportunity to heal divides in our city where there are barriers in the landscape, such as this rendering of the I-95 overpass. This area is ripe for creating an area to capture large volumes of stormwater from the interstate and adjacent lands, and it's also great for creating a place where there would be a farmer's market as well there. It's an opportunity to change quite a large area of our city because so much green infrastructure development needs to take place.
So how do we actually get all this done? Our proposal relies on a bottom-up approach, which means that communities provide local intelligence that informs the planning for green infrastructure within their own neighborhood. This creates solutions that are uniquely responsive to each neighborhood. They strengthen the character of the place and actually provide a sense of ownership among its residents. So while insight will be drawn from the communities, the Philadelphia Water Department will ultimately shepherd the process. So through a new Office of Green Neighborhoods, the Water Department would coordinate closely with neighborhood associations to manage projects and administer funds. And public funds could be distributed on a sliding scale to address all neighborhoods equitably. So there, as Tiffany referred to later, there's $2.4 billion worth of public funds that's actually been set aside for managing stormwater and for green infrastructure citywide. However, there are also additional avenues for both public and private funding when working in neighborhoods. In Queen Village, we can roll green infrastructure upgrades into scheduled public work projects like intersection upgrades and rebuilding I-95. We can also provide incentive for small commercial landowners who previously had very little incentive, which enables them to offset their impervious surface fee through investing in their own neighborhood. These are only a few examples. The menu of potential funding opportunities would be unique to each neighborhood. So we believe that strong communities are resilient communities, and they're places where people actually want to live and places that respond to their environment over time. So our proposal puts forth, and we believe that we should put our efforts into building communities such as these, and in the process bring all of Philadelphia closer to meeting green. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard and Ari. That was a great overview of this winning design. And once again, we're going to open up for some questions. We do have some time. Same questions as before popping up. Can you give us some information in terms of the number of green acres? I think you went over some of this, and also cost per green acre.
So the neighborhood area was approximately 20 acres, and we had a strategy that actually we think went beyond the goal of if we were able to do 42% of the neighborhood, we would have gone actually above the PWD green infrastructure goal. So there was approximately 8 acres that were managed in terms of capturing water and infiltrating it within the neighborhood. In terms of the cost, that was one of the issues that we struggled with, because as soon as you bring green infrastructure into a site that has many parcels and has infrastructure below ground, your cost points move upwards. So if you took the 9,500 greened acres and you divided that into the $2.4 billion sum, you would wind up with a number around, I believe, $200,000 per acre. And we were quite a bit north of that. And so our assumption was that the majority of the greened acre goal would actually be accomplished through the low-hanging fruit sites, which we call the large lot properties that are at the perimeter of the city, but a third would be set aside for greening within the city to actually meet that triple bottom line mandate of bringing green infrastructure to the people and making it something socially meaningful to the neighborhoods. So you'd pay more for green infrastructure in the neighborhood, but you wouldn't do quite as much as you would do in the sites where it was more condition of channeling water in a large lot to a small site.
Okay. Another question, are there existing local community or neighborhood groups with which to work?
It varies by neighborhood. Some neighborhoods have a lot of organization to them. Quite often you find in underserved communities that's not the case. And through this creation of the Office of Green Neighborhoods that we're proposing, it would be a body that would link with the Philadelphia City Planning to help build organization where there wasn't that organizational force there to help the community define their environmental goals for their neighborhood.
And there's a question that actually has come up earlier, and I think Tiffany had another commitment. The question here is, what's the likelihood of these winning projects being implemented? If you guys would like to address that, I may be able to also add a little bit of perspective. I do know that the intent of the city and PWD was to take these winning designs and implement them. It may be a mix that they may pull from, but the intent was actually to implement the winning designs. Perhaps some of the, Ari, Richard, feel free to provide any comments therein as relates to the feasibility here. I think it's great that you highlighted other opportunities to leverage with other public works and infrastructure projects, for example.
I think that PWD, they have a 25-year window, or actually a little bit under that now, to address managing 9,500 greened acres. And to accomplish that aim, they're going to have to go into the neighborhoods to do it. And you can't do anywhere in a neighborhood. You have to be targeted to what's the right cost for the greened acre, and what's the community impact that it's going to have. And what we felt that PWD didn't have as much description on at this point, and we believe is working towards, is a way of prioritizing where you put green infrastructure. What's the decision-making process for that? And we wanted to put forth a proposal that helped them tailor it to, well, does it meet a certain amount of social benefit? Does it help the local ecosystems? And is it, managing that stormwater volume in a sustainable way? And so this really focused on a way of prioritizing where you put green infrastructure to get those triple bottom line returns.
Yeah, I thought it was very interesting that you actually started looking at the entire CSO geographic area and provided these types of options for residential areas. This question, there are a couple here that relate to transportation. That you spoke of I-95, how involved is DOT, and what leverage does the city have over the highway? I think these are questions actually more directly for the city, not you guys as participants in the design competition, but maybe you want to espouse on that. There was another question that said, what changes do you foresee your proposal would instigate in areas such as transportation, land use, and other sustainable city type approaches?
Part of our approach too was to build better communication and coordination between the city's departments. That's something that's absolutely going to need to happen if this proposal is going to be implemented. And that was something that was very much at the forefront of the minds of our collaborators at Penn Praxis and others, and our other collaborators as well. Looking at streets and other public works, it's imperative to have that cross coordination.
Okay, Tiffany, I know, has joined us again, and so I think that is absolutely the intent of the city in terms of opportunities, and in fact that's going on to a large degree, I know, through PWD. But Tiffany, the question was, what's the intent on behalf of the city to look at these types of approaches regarding implementation for the winning designs? And then the last question was about collaboration with regards to DOTs and other departments. Would you care to address that? Okay, now for everyone out there, I got a little note that said Tiffany was back. Apologies there. What we'll do is move on, and I won't even try to speak on behalf of PWD, but I do know there is absolute interest, if not active planning going on among a variety of the city departments, and certainly as relates to transportation. Are there any last comments, perhaps, that I'll open it up to Richard and Ari, and then beyond that to any of the other team participants. And while we thank all you, we do also realize you've got all your team members out there that we'd like to thank. What are your thoughts about these types of design competitions as drivers for pushing more innovative approaches, more sustainable approaches, perhaps as it relates to managing rainwater and other opportunities? Anybody care to comment on your experiences? And we have a number of communities out there that are very interested in putting on these design competitions. So perhaps you can comment on that.
I think these design competitions are wonderful opportunities for community dialogue. They're great when institutions want to challenge themselves about, how can this be done better. I thought PWD was very good and the Community Design Collaborative and the EPA about being definitive about the goals that they were trying to accomplish. I think because this competition was so focused, because it selected several sites and several typologies, the amount of thinking that came before the competition, was released, I think really helped focus the thoughts of the design community to create something innovative. And I think when you have that approach where there's a lot of thinking behind the outcomes of the competition, then I think you come up with something very rich and something definitely that the design community wanted to put a thoughtful response to. And I have to say, our team, S&P Architects, Penn Praxis, our civil engineers, Gilmore Associates, international consultants, and MM Partners, it was a great team covering the gamut from private development's perspective to the design profession to the engineers trying to solve this city problem that so many cities face. And we quite enjoyed taking on the problem of neighborhoods and learning from all the great solutions that everyone came up with across the spectrum in this competition.
Great, well said. And I actually just checked the time and realized that we're running out of time. So with that, I'm going to again thank all of our winning design teams for sharing what I'm sure we'll see more of, certainly in Philadelphia, if not beyond, in the future. And I also want to thank the City of Philadelphia and PWD and the Community Design Collaborative for giving us yet again another great model on not only how to do a competition, but how to keep this ball rolling. So with that, I'd just like to, before concluding the webcast, remind everyone that we're going to do another one on Thursday, April 18th. Also, don't forget to download the certificate for this if you've stayed with us for the 60 minutes through the tab on your console. And again, for the April 18th, I realize I'm all over the place, out of time, this webcast will be the second in a series highlighting successes in G3 projects. So again, go to the Downloads tab, get a copy of those slides with the registration URL so that you can copy it and then get the link. Please consider filling out the webcast evaluation survey. It's always good to know how we can make these webcasts and opportunities to give you information better. If there are topics you're interested in, we'd also like to know that. So again, I'd like to conclude, and thanks to Tiffany, Heidi, Laura, Musco, Christopher, Johanna, Richard, and Ari for presenting today, and thanks to all of you for joining us. That concludes our G3 webcast.